Dear bedside friends, colleagues, I love you, I appreciate you, but there are just some pet peeves, little things I think you should know. Don't you want to know the things that go through the provider's mind, what they think about you and your skills, what they wish you knew? Well, here's your insider tip video to get you that. In this video, we're going to talk about the big picture. We're going to talk about how to make a phone call and what it is that I need to hear from you, and a few little tidbits of things like hyperkalemia, like an awakening trial, little things that we wish that we could communicate to you all. So if that's what you're interested in, check out this video. If we haven't met yet, my name's Bree. I'm a nurse practitioner. I make content for nurses, NPs, and students. Welcome. Okay, first of all, I love you guys so much, especially in this pandemic and the crap that y'all are doing. I don't know how you're doing it. Please know that this video is intended to help you just kind of understand some of the things that they're seeing sort of across the board with nurses that maybe is being lost, and to help you just sort of level up your game. You guys are the engine of the healthcare system. Without you, nothing would work, nothing would run, and we appreciate you so very much. Please know that. The first thing, and this is probably the most important thing that I want you to know, is that what I see in this role that I didn't see as a bedside nurse with my colleagues is that I think in general, nurses have lost sight of the big picture. Things have become very much focused on the daily tasks that need to be accomplished and not the overall big picture of the care of the patient. And what I need you to know is, from what I do, what my job is, and really what your job is too, the big picture is what should drive everything else. So here's the big picture. The three things that I teach all my NP students, and the three things I think you should focus on as well, is that every single patient who is in the ICU these three things need to be addressed every day. One is diagnosis. We need to figure out what the diagnosis is. What's the problem? We can't get them better if we don't know what the problem is. The second thing is, what are the specific problems that day that need to be addressed? The third thing is, what am I going to do about those problems to get them better, to get them out the doors? That's all that matters. All of the other things, all of the minutia, all the other little tasks that need to be accomplished during the day should support those three goals. And I don't want you to lose sight of that as a bedside nurse. And I feel like bedside nurses are losing that. And part of it is the system's fault, right? We're taking away all possibilities of critical thinking from nurses. You're not allowed to titrate your own insulin drips. You're not allowed to titrate your own sedation. It's got to be within the range of whatever I set it to be. You're not allowed to figure out how much potassium you give. You've got to look specifically at the electrolyte replacement. I get that protocols have a place, but I think that protocols are taking away from our big picture critical thinking skills. Don't let it. You are smarter than that, and you are better than that. The other thing that I think is complicating this for you all is, golly, all the stupid little things that you have to chart and do during the day. Those freaking restraints every 2 hours, that is a big piece of why I left the bedside. That is so stupid. You want me to write down that I'm checking the restraints every 2 hours, and it's got to be an even hour on the dot so that it looks good for the accrediting institution that comes through? Okay, DMV, okay, JCO, this is just a little public service announcement. Do you really think the nurses are doing that every 2 hours? No, not at 8 o'clock on the dot. They're doing it when they go in the room, which is more often than every 2 hours, but it's not 8 o'clock on the dot. Why do we have to chart at 8 o'clock on the dot? That's so stupid. It's a big pet peeve of mine. But anyways, I just say that because I want y'all to know that I understand all the stupid little things that you're required to do during the day, and how that takes up your day and sucks away your time from the big picture. But I encourage you, I hope to inspire you to be better than that, and to appreciate and treat more than that. That's what sets you apart as a stellar, insightful, good ICU nurse. So the next thing we're going to talk about is phone calls. There are a couple things I want to tell you about phone calls. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about how I function and what I do, so that you can understand the background behind maybe why you're not getting what you need. Number one, I am one of about, right now, 10 people on my team. So if you call me and say, hey, are you the critical care provider? Well, yes, I am. and then you immediately launch into a long diatribe about a patient that I know nothing about because we have 80 people in our census right now, it's going to frustrate the heck out of me because it's just going to waste your time and mine. I need to get you to the right person. So okay, I know this is going to sound condescending, and please don't take it that way, but I have to say it because it happens so much. I need you to slow down, even if you're in a dire situation, even if you're in the middle of a code, even if it's something bad. I need you to take a half a second and identify who you are, what unit you're calling from, and what patient you're calling about, because I need to get you to the right person if it's not me. And the other thing is, even though, we talked for a while in rounds, and I know who your patient is, I'm also treating maybe 10 other people. So I've already probably forgotten which nurse has who. I'm sorry. I probably have, y'all. I love you, but I've probably already forgotten. I've probably forgotten some of the things we talked about during rounds. So just give me a little refresher, okay? Don't start out with, hey, this is Jenny from room 2. I need blah, 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 blah. Okay, Jenny, which room 2? There are 4 units, which room 2? And what's the name of the patient? And what were we talking about again? I forgot. Help my neurons fire just a little bit better so I can give you what you need. Help me help you. Here's the other thing, y'all. Oh, gosh. Okay, I receive between 30 and 50 phone calls a day. And that's on day shift. Night shift is even more for a lot more people. So if you call me and you're frustrated with me because I didn't answer your call the last 2 times you called, it's probably because I was on the phone with one of 29 or 49 other people. So just give it a minute. If it's not something emergent, give it a minute. Call me back in a minute or 2. I will probably answer then. Or the other thing I need you to understand is I'm also doing procedures and talking to families. So if I don't answer, it's a reason why I'm not answering. It's not because I'm sitting in my desk with my feet up eating bonbons. It's not. It's because something else is happening that I can't talk to you right that second. So please don't get frustrated with me. If it's not an emergency, just wait. Or if it is an emergency, call one of my colleagues. You've got a billion other phone numbers you can call. One of my friends brought this up, and I didn't think about it until she said it. But the other thing I need you to understand is, because I get this a lot. Hey, are you with Dr. Jones? Well, no, I'm not. I mean, we see each other throughout the day, but we're not hand-tied all day. I don't share an office with them. They're off doing things. I'm off doing things. We're not hand-tied all day long. So if you're looking for Dr. So-and-so, let me know that. If you're calling because you have a need and they're not available to you, lead with that. Or try their phone number first. I don't know. Okay, and the most important part about the telephone call is this. Y'all, when I was a nurse, I was always a little bit anxious before I called the provider. I had to gather my data and make sure I had all the pertinent stuff that they were going to ask me, because the worst thing in the world is when you have a need and you call a physician and you think they're going to ask you this and they ask you something else that you don't know. You're like, oh, I don't know the answer to that, but I see why it's relevant. Some of that is just your level of experience and knowing the provider you work with so you can anticipate what they're going to ask. But I think when I worked at the bedside, they taught nurses to use SBAR format when they made phone calls, and I'm going to support that because I think that helps bring things into a concise, understandable format. Because here's the thing, from my end of things, when you call me with a situation, even if it's a dire situation, what I need you to understand is I could be sitting around writing notes and have all the time in the world to talk to you, or I could be involved in a code where I'm actively having to make decisions for something that's quite emergent, and your call may also be emergent. I'm not saying it's not, but I need you to get to the point. I need you to get to the point quickly, and I need to know exactly what it is you need so I can determine whether I need to abandon this code and come to yours, or how I need to deploy people to the right places. So using the SBAR format, I think, helps you to compile all of that stuff in your brain into a presentable and understandable format. So let me just give you an example of how that might go. Hey Bree, this is Bree in room 34 of the ICU. I'm calling you about Mr. Jones. I have a problem with hypotension right now. That is your situation. The last 3 cuff readings that I've taken have given me a systolic less than 90. His MAP is 55. He's also a little sleepier. It's harder for me to get him to stay awake for me right now. His heart rate's 125. That's your background. I think possibly he's hypovolemic. He diuresed him very aggressively over the last 24 hours. He's net negative like 10 liters. His skin is tinting. He's got dry roll mucosa. That's your assessment. I think possibly we should just give him some volume. Do you want me to hang a liter of LR, possibly some albumin? I can also get the RT to try and place an art line so we can better assess this. That's your recommendation. You've said that in less than a minute. That's given me all of the things I need to know to make an assessment about how acute this problem is and whether or not I need to drop my code and run there, or whether I can just give you some verbal or even written orders so that you can get what you need to get your patient better. That's what we want to hear. I'm going to hang up that phone call and think, wow, that nurse has really got it going on. Nice job. Like, I'm going to trust you the next time you call and you can't put into words what's happening and all you can say is come quick. I'm going to come because I trust your ability to assess the pertinent positives and negatives and make a good diagnosis. General tips about calling: stop apologizing. Do not say you're sorry to me for calling me, even if you've called me 20 times. That is your job. And my job is to receive all of those calls. So you should never be sorry for it. I say this out loud because I need to hear it too. I do the same thing. If I call a consultant and I know I'm annoying them, I say, I'm sorry I have to call you. And I thought, we should stop apologizing. This is our job. We're doing our job. Don't feel bad about that. The last thing is to remember when you're compiling your information, doctors like data. I used to tell myself this all the time. I did home health care for a while, and that's all I did was make phone calls all day long. And I would just tell myself, okay, doctors like data. What is the data? What is the objective information I can give them so that they can make an assessment? What would I ask in this situation? So compile as much data to support your diagnosis as possible, and they will love you for it. Next thing, should you do a death talk? Should you, as a bedside nurse, do the goals of care discussions with the patients? Here's a confession. I did them all the time when I was a bedside nurse. In part because I really, this is a big part of what I do. This sort of fulfills my purpose in life and what gives me joy in working in the ICU. I really enjoy being a part of someone's hour of greatest need and helping these families in turmoil. I really enjoy that. So I did a lot of that when I was a bedside nurse. And looking back on it, I'm not sure that I should have, or maybe that I should have done it differently. And here's why. And I didn't realize it till I went back to school and started practicing as a practitioner. As a bedside nurse, you don't always see the big picture. Here's what you see as a bedside nurse. You go and you see a tube in every orifice. You see a patient that you feel is suffering, and you just want it to stop. You just want the family to finally get it and stop. I get it. I do. And please understand that as providers, we feel that way too. But I have to do it like a game of chess, right? I have to see 3 or 4 steps ahead, not just the immediate one. So if I come in and I'm the 10th person to hammer into them how bad this is, that may counteract any good that could be done. And the other thing I didn't fully understand as a bedside nurse was prognostication, which is its own field of study. Understanding prognostication is complicated, and in my personal opinion, can't really be done with the training we get as a bedside nurse. So here's how I would like to see it done. In Brianna's perfect world, I want you to be my closer. I don't want you to have any goals of care talks with the family until after I have. Unless, like, there's a situation where there's a family who's been opposed to palliative care the whole time. They're not even close to talking about that kind of thing, and you're just advocating for what it is. Maybe we should sit down and have some in-depth discussions. This would really benefit you by X, Y, and Z. Yeah, by all means, have those conversations. Encourage that in a gentle way. That's really helpful. But don't start off with any kind of prognostication, any kind of statistical analysis. Don't give them any, they're not going to survive or their odds of survival are. Y'all, that can sometimes derail what I'm trying to do. So I want to go in with you, with the entire team, whoever's involved, to have these palliative discussions, and then I'm going to step away and let it all wash over them and let them have time to think about it. And here's what's going to happen 9 times out of 10. That family is going to reconvene in the room. You're going to be there. You're the person that they trust more than anyone because you're the one in there with their family member 24 hours a day. So they're going to trust what you have to say far more than they're going to trust me. So once I've presented what the problems are and you're in the room doing your task or whatever, they are almost always going to ask you what you think. That's when you have the power to turn the tides. And that's when I really want you to do your magic. But the timing of it needs to be as I just illustrated for a lot of different reasons. If you're interested in this kind of thing, I made a video outlining how I do a goals of care talk, and I'll put the link up in here somewhere. Random tip number 1, hyperkalemia kills, people. This is going to be a little of a soapbox, so I apologize. Just bear with me. If I had $1 for every time you guys called me or stopped me in the hallway to tell me about a potassium of 3.2 and can you replace it, I'd be a rich woman. You all are worried about that hypokalemia, but I'll be daggum if I'm not looking through labs and find out I have a patient with a potassium of 6.8 and I go to find you and you're sitting in the break room having lunch and you're like, oh, I was going to call you. Oh my God, y'all. Okay, friends. When is the last time you were in a code blue and you get a gas and the gas comes back with a potassium of 2.1? Can anybody give me an example of that? I mean, it does happen. So I say it because it does happen, but it's not often, right? But when do you see a potassium of 7? Hyperkalemia will kill you. It will kill your patient. It should be treated as an emergency. You should be dropping absolutely everything else you're doing. You should, for darn sure, not be bathing and putting a sticker on your patient's butt. You should be dropping that, calling me. We should be putting in a vas cath. Like, there are things that needs to happen or this person is going to die. And I do not know why, but this gets overlooked by 9 out of 10 nurses. I'm not lying, y'all. I'm not lying. Now, there are those of you who do get it. This is a problem, y'all. Okay, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Hyperkalemia kills. If you don't recognize it, I'm going to think less of you. Sorry, it is what it is. And my last soapbox is an awakening trial. Y'all, please leave some comments below. Tell me, what are they teaching in school? What are you taught in school and what are you taught on orientation for what an awakening trial is? Because I don't see it done right most of the time. Now, there are a handful of people in which you're not going to do a spontaneous awakening trial every morning. There are people who are seizing, people who are profoundly hypoxic, people who have airway issues. We're not going to do an awakening trial every day on them. Okay, but there's generally, that's going to be communicated. It's probably going to be an order in the computer. You will know when you're not supposed to. Otherwise, you should all be doing a daily, every single morning. That's what daily means. Spontaneous awakening and breathing trial, if they're on the vent. So what does that mean? That does not mean when we come around for rounds at 10 o'clock, well, I'm weaning the Precedex, it's at 0.7. No, friends. That's weaning. That's not an awakening. There's a difference between weaning sedation and awakening trial. Here's what an awakening trial looks like. You go in the room for your morning assessment. You turn off the pumps. You turn off the drips. You turn them off. You don't pause them. You turn them off, completely off. And you go about your business and you see what happens. And yes, a lot of them are going to go buck wild and it's going to be miserable. It's going to take you a while to get them back down. And I get it. You still got to do it. Just because it sucks doesn't mean you don't have to do it. You have to do it. And then if they go buck wild, you turn it back on at what? What, friends? 50%. 50% of what it was, and then you titrate up. Okay. If we don't, here's why I harp on this. If we don't do this every day, we're prolonging time to extubation. Because if I come around and we don't get around to you until, gosh, sometimes 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon in rounds, and you tell me you've been weaning all day, well, now we've lost half of a day. Half of a day is huge when it comes to ventilator time, y'all. So I need for you to tell me you did an awakening trial, and while or shortly after you did the awakening trial, you did a breathing trial, and here was the results. Because that's what's going to contribute to the big picture, right? The big picture for most people in an ICU is, when do we get off of a ventilator? You can make massive strides in contributing to the big picture, your understanding and your application of treatment towards that big picture, by doing your awakening and breathing trials. The other thing I want you to know about the breathing trial is, if they fail, tell me why. Or if you don't understand why, or you don't really know, have the RT tell me why. But agitation is an umbrella term, right? It's just like saying someone's confused. Well, there can be a million reasons why they're confused. We have to drill down a little more. So with the breathing trial, if they fail, why? Were they tachypnic? Were they hyperdynamic? Was it a blood pressure and heart rate issue? Were they asynchronous with the ventilator? Was their RSBI high? Were their rapid shallow breathing index, was it higher than 100? That tells me they're breathing too fast and too quick to pull in big volumes. Was there something else contributing to why they failed and they had to go back on a rate? If you can communicate that to me, which not a lot of nurses can, man, brownie points big time. I'm going to be talking to you about why you're not going back to school, because that's how few people actually get that. So those are my soapboxes. Those are the things that my colleagues that I polled talked about and things that I fully agree with. And these are just little things you can implement into your practice to bring you to that next level. So if y'all are out there working in this pandemic, please know that I think the absolute world of you. I appreciate you. I hope that you're staying strong. I hope that you're taking care of yourself because we need you in this for the long haul.